Hey guys, welcome back. So today we want to have a discussion about 5.56 versus 308 for Shiznit Hits the Fan. We did do a video, 5.56 sucks, so you want a 308 battle rifle. That was focused primarily on the firearms themselves. Today we want to have a conversation about the cartridges themselves and what makes sense for your particular needs. A lot of folks go out there and just assume they need a 5.56 AR, that's what everybody runs, and that's what I should run too, without giving much thought to their particular situation. And that's the conversation we want to have today. Now, we will be comparing 5.56 to 308, but there are other cartridges out there that you could compare the 5.56 to. 6.5 Creedmoor, 6 Creedmoor, 6.5 Grindle. But we're going to focus on 5.56 and 308 because they are still the most popular and most commonly available cartridges in the United States. Now, before we get started with today's video, guys, if you enjoyed the content that we produce here at the Military Arms channel, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. You'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll get direct access to me. I answer all private communications with some other perks as well. So please click the link in the video description below and consider joining our Patreon family. With that being said, let's get started with today's video. So the 5.56 is probably America's most popular cartridge for rifles intended for self-defense and even Shiznit hits the fan type scenarios. And why is that? Well, the U.S. military developed the 5.56 cartridge for Vietnam. Vietnam was a conflict where there was a lot of very close range fighting, and we were trying to make that transition from battle rifles to assault rifles. And yes, it's a real term, look it up. Not an assault weapon, but an assault rifle. And we wanted to adopt a real assault rifle, something that was an intermediate cartridge that could easily be fired on full auto and be maintainable and controllable by your average troop. And that's how the 5.56 came into being. So it was very specific for that particular era and that particular war and that particular need. As time has gone on, we currently find ourselves looking at the U.S. military adopting a cartridge like 6.8 by 51, pretty much a 308. It's just a slightly smaller, more ballistically efficient bullet than a 30 caliber slug out of a 147 grain ball round that was used in the 308 or the 7.62 by 51 NATO. So it looks like the U.S. military is starting to look at a multi-purpose cartridge. They're kind of wanting to divert away from the 5.56. The 5.56 is something that, again, has very specific purposes. It works great for close range self-defense. And so does that really translate to something that is going to be beneficial to you as a Shiznit hits the fan firearm? So let's talk about that. So the 5.56, very controllable, very lightweight. You can roughly carry 3 of these cartridges for every one of the 308s based upon weight. So light recoil, lightweight. You can move around with quite a bit of ammunition. The guns, typically lightweight, although some of them get a little bit porkier like the Virtus, but for me, a little bit of extra weight doesn't really negatively affect me. A little bit of extra weight makes the rifle a little bit more stable for aimed fire. So I like a little bit of weight. Like a rifle can be too light in my opinion. But the 5.56 223 is commonly available, and people, when you look at YouTube or anything like that, almost everybody is using 5.56 with a 16-inch barrel. Now, the 5.56 is optimized for a 20-inch barrel. And so when you start chopping that barrel back to 16 inches, for example, you start to give up velocity. And the 5.56 depends heavily on velocity for its effectiveness. So as you start to shorten that barrel with the introduction of the braced pistols into the U.S. market, we saw people going below 16-inch barrels, people starting to run 10-inch barrels, 8-inch barrels, 11-inch barrels. And those shorter barrels really start to limit the range and effectiveness of the 5.56 cartridge. So again, its use would be very heavily based on your particular situation. Do you live in the city? Do you anticipate getting in a lot of self-defense situations where you're going to be fighting for your life over and over again? Or do you live in a more rural environment where you're probably going to be more likely to hunt an animal than you are having to find yourself in a self-defense situation? And if you do find yourself in a self-defense situation, are you going to be sheltered in place? Are you bugging out and running across cornfields trying to find some place to live with all of your food and supplies on your back? So all that factors in to selecting the right cartridge for your particular needs. The 5.56 in my case, where I live in wide open spaces. It's not really effective as a hunting cartridge. Now, at short engagement distances, with the accuracy as this rifle here is set up for, this is a self-defense rifle, I can comfortably take a clean shot on a deer maybe to 200 yards, but I'm pushing the effective range of the cartridge so the animal doesn't just run off and I lose it and I wasted a cartridge and now I have an animal I can't recover. And so it's not ideally suited for hunting. I'm more likely, I believe, where I sit, to find myself in a situation where I'm going to need to take maybe a 300-yard shot on a deer. So I'm going to want a heavier cartridge for that. So I might lean towards a 308 versus a 5.56. If you're the bug out guy, you're going to lean heavily towards the 5.56. I would recommend, if you're looking at a 5.56, to go with a longer barrel option. Good luck finding a 20-inch barreled AR out there, because most of the guys and gals out there buying rifles right now are buying the 16-inch barreled guns, and a lot of manufacturers have stopped producing the 20-inch barreled guns, which I believe is more effective than the shorter barrel lengths that are out there. So the Virtus is an example of a 5.56 rifle that I like quite a bit. It's a very soft shooting, very accurate, very capable rifle. But in my particular needs, in my particular situation, I don't think it's an ideal choice for self-defense or putting food on the table or basically providing myself with a weapon system for a shiznit hits the fan type scenario. We'd like to thank TacPack for bringing you today's video. TacPack is a monthly subscription box, and it's a tactical EDC subscription. Inside, you're going to find, if you get the standard version, 6 items that are guaranteed to be worth over $100. If you get the plus version of the box, it's guaranteed to have a value over $250. It adds 1 extra item to the 6 items in the plus box. And again, it shows up every 30 days. If you want to pick up a TacPack for January of 2022, the January of 2022 box is going to have more than $100 worth of items in it for that standard edition. So please check out TacPack. What we're going to do now is open up this box. I have no idea what's inside of it. Let's open her up and see what we got. Now you're going to find knives, tools, accessories typically in here. So we have a t-shirt, it says TacPack on it. Oh, this is nice. A really nice AR-15 tool set. Has a lot of tools in there. Put that on your rig there. Oh, check that out. All right. A nice stock there for your AR-15 or anything that uses AR-15 buffer tube. This one is the December box. So it has some Christmas stuff in it. TacPack swag. Oh, this is cool. I get a kick out of goat guns. I have several of their firearms, their display guns. Really cool. That's in there. Got a Battle Arms Rack 15 AR-15 charging handle, ambi. That's nice. Oh, check that out. And a SOG hatchet. Actually, I'm going to put one of these in the Jeep. So, well, there you go. The standard box. Oh, there's a couple more stickers in there. So the standard box is $49.95. The plus box is $129.95. And again, if you guys want to get the January box that's valued over $100, get those orders in before January 1st. That means do it this weekend. So the whole point of this video is to get you to think about your particular situation and think about that situation carefully. If you're bugging out, 5.56 may make a better choice because of its lightweight, low recoil, and the fact you can carry more ammunition. If you're sheltering in place like I plan to in wide open spaces, you may want to look at something like 308. Why would you want to look at a 308 kind of like the rifle that you see here? Well, 308 has that power. So with a 16 or shorter inch barrel with a 5.56, taking a shot at 300 yards, like even with my SIG Virtus, which has a longer barrel, it's 16 inches, even with the SIG Virtus at 300 yards, the way it's configured isn't really going to put meat on the table. There's a good chance I'll miss that animal just because the way the weapon's configured. If you have a red dot sight on your firearm, for example, not really configured for hunting at distance. And where I'm at, especially in the fall, it's quite wide open. You can see quite far, and you're probably going to have to take a fairly long shot on an animal over 100 yards. 5.56 really starts to fall off past 300 yards if you're running a shorter barrel. 308 is good for much greater distance. And how you can configure your rifle, your 308, will be key to how effective it is for that particular role. So I'm not going to put a red dot sight on a 308. 308 is going to be intended for those longer engagements, for really hunting, but also doing double duty as a self-defense rifle. 308, again, good out to 800 yards. It's commonly available. It's good for hunting, and it also has good barrier penetration. So if I find myself in a bad situation in my house, I can still use 308. You'll also notice I'm running suppressors on all my firearms. I believe that suppressors are important, and you should consider using one, not so much to mask your location so you can do super sneaky ninja stuff, but just so that you can reduce that concussive force of having to fire a weapon in a structure, for example. suppressors do a really good job of doing that. And then when you're out in wide open spaces, it will kind of sort of mask your location a little bit and not broadcast to the world that you just took an animal somewhere if you have people out there scavenging looking for food. So suppressors, a definite bonus. I really don't see any downside to them other than adding a little bit of length to your rifle. You'll also notice that on a rifle like this is Robinson Armament XCR. There are a number of good rifles out there, both in 5.56 and 308. The AR-10 is probably going to be your best choice for a rifle in 308 if you're looking for buying something on a budget. In terms of 5.56 on a budget, there are plenty good, 5.56 ARs out there. There's companies like Palmetto State Armory that offer 5.56 AR-15s for very affordable prices. So you have good choices on both sides of the caliber cartridge argument. On the 30 cal side, I'm definitely going to set the rifle up like you see it here. This has a primary arms magnified optic on it because, again, I'm probably going to find myself in a hunting situation and trying to avoid gunfights in my shelter-in-place scenario. And that's precisely what we did through the whole COVID pandemic. Out here, I have little bags of meat running all over the place. We have a garden, we have a fresh water supply source from the ground, so we don't really need a whole lot except protein, and that's what this rifle would primarily be used for. Yes, I said a Tavor 7, but I'm talking in my previous video as a rifle that I would choose, but this is an example of a 308 rifle that you can go out and pick up that's not a bullpup for those of you that don't like bullpups. The XCR, and you've seen it previously, had a 6.5 Creedmoor barrel on it. I've put the 308 barrel in it, which is a simple process of just releasing this screw, sliding the old barrel out, sliding the new one in. So the XCR is a higher cost alternative, but gives you an idea of other options out there other than ARs if that's what you're looking for. So 308 is going to be really good at distance. It's good at barrier penetration. If you set it up properly, it's going to be great for hunting. And it's basically going to, in my situation, in my shelter-in-place situation, going to make a better choice for a Shiznit hits the fan rifle versus something like the Virtus, where I'm not going to be able to take a shot on an animal at a very good distance or at very far distance because I'm limited by the optic that's on it. If you run a red dot sight, very limited. And with the 5.56 at 300 yards, you're going to have to be very careful where you place that shot on a deer, for example, if you want to recover that deer once you shoot it. So, yeah, 30 caliber for me makes a whole lot of sense. One of the reasons we decided to make this video today is because so many folks online, especially on YouTube, seem to focus on the tactical side. Getting all kitted up with body armor, chest rigs, bump helmets, nods, all this stuff. And most of the folks that you see using that type of equipment, I mean, certainly it's good for self-defense. It's also good for an offensive role. But once again, remember that there will be a rule of law that comes back at some point. You'll be held accountable for any actions you may take during a moment of civil unrest. And also, if you're not really working with a team, having all that gear on, roaming around downtown Chicago, just broadcasts to the world that you have some really nice stuff that a group of people may just decide to liberate from you. So you really have to think about your own position, what you need to do. If you live in the city, you need to bug out to the countryside. 5.56 doesn't suck. It has its role. Perhaps in that role that makes more sense because you're going to be able to carry more ammunition, going to have a lighter rifle generally speaking, but 308s have come down in weight quite a bit. PLF Revolution is an example. So again, you really have to think this through on your side and try to push past all the stuff that you see online that's pushing you into this tactical mindset, because you really probably should be trying to avoid gunfights, not planning on getting into them, and think more about protecting yourself, your family, and what preps you've put away so you can weather the storm. All right, guys, look forward to your comments down below. I think that you guys are probably going to have some pretty good input. Again, this is a thought exercise. This is not me saying that one cartridge sucks or is worse than the other. I'm trying just to get you to think about the whole situation at hand and how it would affect you personally based on your location and other variables. And so please do that. Also, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, guys, there's a great way to do that, and that's to become part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. You can also become part of our YouTube family right here by clicking the join button you see underneath the video player you're watching right now. And with all that being said, thank you for 13 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.